Hello everyone, it's Vita here, and today I'm in Helena, Montana with my husband who is playing in a disc golf tournament. I was planning to come up here with him anyway, but then the weather turned cold and rainy and snowy, and I debated back and forth, but decided to come anyway because I figured I could at least sit in the car where it's nice and warm if the weather was super bad and do some hand sewing, and I could also visit some quilt shops when they open up here in just a bit. There are a lot of hand sewing projects that you can do as a take-along project. I save these things up instead of doing them while I'm in my studio most of the time. I'll carry them with me on occasions like this. If you're flying on a plane, or you're going to watch the kids soccer practice, or like me sitting here waiting for my husband to play 2 rounds of a disc golf tournament. But today, as I'm going to show you, is not exactly the best day for following him around. As you can see, it's a bit rainy, it's snowy. So I just packed these things up with me. I have a collection of baskets that I really like that hold a lot of stuff. And today I brought along a cross-stitch project that I've been working on here and there. I'm not in any hurry to finish it, but I thought I'd bring that. And then I also brought this English paper piecing quilt wall hanging that I made this last week. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be hand sewing the binding onto this quilt, and I thought this would make a great tutorial for you. So first thing, I always worry about the interior of my car, whether it's leather or cloth, with scissors in the car. So I use these little scissors. They're kind of cutesy, fancy. They're not the greatest scissors, but they do the trick for doing hand sewing and snipping your threads and that sort of thing. And these go around your neck and also go in this case, so I can sort of make sure that I'm not going to put a hole in my seats. I brought along my needle and thread, and I've already threaded it, but I'm going to show you a little trick for putting your knot in your thread. So if you take it and put it behind the needle here on this end, and then wrap it around 2 or 3 times loosely, not super tight, and then pull it down. This is a great way for making your knot. It's not too big of a knot, so it's not too bulky in your quilt or whatever you're hemming. And then I just trim off the excess. Now, to get started, I've already started this and I'm about to make this turn. I've sewn my binding onto the front of the quilt at 1/4 inch. And then I pressed it out, and now I'm turning it over and sewing it on the back side. So I've come to the corner here and I've stitched all the way to the end, and now I'm going to fold this over, and I'm going to start underneath this area here. So this makes sure that we make this slide down flat. So I'm going in, and then I'm coming out through here. So if you do any kind of quilting, or if you want to do stuffed animals and that sort of thing, you're going to need to learn this stitch. It's a hidden stitch, so what I'm doing is I'm going underneath that trim. There, we got that nice and flat. I'm going underneath the trim, or my binding, and I'm stitching into my quilt on the back side here, and then coming up and catching the bottom side of that binding, and then going back into the back of the quilt. You can do as many as you want, as many stitches as you want that you're comfortable with. The thinner your needle, the narrower your needle, the finer your needle, the more you're going to be able to rock it back and forth. But my eyes are now getting to the point where I can't thread a teeny tiny needle, so I can't rock it as much as I would like to. And you just continue on going back and forth. You're grabbing, and you're trying to do it so that you don't see that thread coming through on the binding. Let's do a different angle. Make sure that you can see it well. I can't see it very well, so hopefully I can do this. So now we're just taking it. You can see I'm doing all the stitching is underneath that binding. So we're stitching here, coming up and grabbing the binding, rocking the needle back down into our quilt, and then pulling it through. If you're using a really sharp needle, you'll probably want to have a bobbin on one of your fingers. That will help a lot. And you just keep doing this and working your way around the binding of the quilt. So you can see why this is a great hand sewing project to do when you're just sitting for a while. And there you go. I'll check back later with you when it's done, and I'll show you how to finish. Every once in a while I can see my husband out there playing disc golf. That's his blue and white umbrella. You can't actually see them because they're down in that hole. There he is. He just made that basket. Yay! Okay, so I've been sewing on this for about an hour, and I got all the way around. This wasn't a very big piece, but it was a good size, I guess, for a wall hanging. So now I'm going to finish it out. You're just going to do the last few steps, which are stitching this closed. Once you get on a roll and get into a rhythm, it goes fairly quickly. The weather has cleared up a bit. It's not raining anymore. And this hillside is just crawling with disc golfers. I haven't seen my husband yet, though. Okay, so then you're just going to go up into the corner, keeping the needle rocking underneath between the binding and the quilt. When you get to the end, you're going to go through, oops, I just pulled that right off of my needle. Let's just trim that, make that sharp again, so it'll go into the needle. That's also a very good tip. When you have to rethread your needle, it's a good idea to go on ahead and clip that thread again so it gives it a nice clean finish. Okay, let's do this again. So we're going to come in here, and we're just going to hook that loop that we're making and do that probably at least twice to make sure it doesn't come undone. Nice and tight. And then trim closed. Here's another tip. When I'm sewing in the car, I use the hand holder to put my thread snips. It works like a little trash can. All right. So there we go. So now I have my piece all done. You can still see the pink markings where I drew the lines that I wanted to put on there so that I knew where to sew. So when I get home, I'm just going to toss this in the wash, and they'll wash completely out. So the little scissors that I was using that I wear around my neck, I found those on Amazon. Shop around a bit because they range in price between $18 and $30 depending on where you buy them. But they're perfect if you're doing hand sewing or even when you're using a long arm quilting machine. I put these around my neck so I always have scissors handy for snipping the threads. They also make a really nice gift for other sewists. I gave a pair of these to one of my mentors for Christmas and a pair to my mom.